Anyway, I'm here with the Tafo Talks, and I actually think that Blur would actually be a good person to talk to in regards to this. A lot of people have been posting on Reddit and just talking about the summit this time around. The campaigns have made over 200, not roughly $200,000, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went over $200,000 in total gross donations slash sales. And she from the Shine Big Blue Esports said like, well, like I have to bring out $20,000 to pay the remains of Shine. So we have a contrast here, and you know, everybody seems to be sharing their thoughts. Some people are like, well, Beyond the Summit must be killing it. They're money hungry. They're evil. To you know, just a bunch of different opinions, and it's been pretty negative. And one thing that, you know, somebody posted on Reddit was that just because the summit raised $200,000, it doesn't necessarily mean they made $200,000, which is what a lot of people thought. And just to bring the reality of production and tournaments, whatever seems like a lot of money for the summit is realistically not a lot of money. And the reason why it seems so amplified is because in general, just speaking from looking at production costs and working with ESL and Yahoo, you can easily spend a ton of money on running a production for a 4 to 5 day event. That $200,000 is realistically not that much money. And the reason why it looks like a lot of money is because Smashers, with everybody between Gimmer, the commentators, the event organizer, the volunteers, we run on extremely low budgets. So we get by very cheaply, but when you work with professionals in an actual business, not to say that Gimmer isn't one, it actually costs money to produce all this stuff. So when I look at it, you know, it seems like a lot of money, but when you break it down, it honestly isn't that much, which is kind of quite telling to show you that's not so much Beyond the Summit making a lot of money. It's more so we've gone by running Smash events on shoestring budgets. That's the way I tend to look at it after looking at balance sheets and a bunch of stuff. Now, the interesting dilemma we have, you know, going forward is, you know, does this, you know, tap into future events? Will people keep donating to the summit? And, you know, is this going to keep going on? How's this going to affect the overall ecostructure? And one other thing we have to realize is that for whatever reason, we do have very different audiences. We have the audience of Smash players that go to events, they play, you know, whether they're a pot filler, you know, they go 0-2 in bracket, to they're good players, to professionals. That market segment versus the segment of people that are very likely to donate to the summit are very different, to be perfectly honest. A lot of the people on the summit, I feel like they're much more willing to donate to that because they feel like they're part of the voting experience, they have a say. And to be honest, I think Beyond the Summit did a really good job marketing and getting people to really want to spend money. Now, there is a question of whether or not this is moral, or like, should this be done? Is this taking advantage of the community? Frankly, I don't really think so. But I do think that given all this, that they should probably make some changes in the future about how voting and the donations are done. I don't know what that necessarily looks like, but it's a lot. There's a lot of ideas going around, but there's nothing. And keep in mind that Beyond the Summit still has to make money. They still pay for the flights of the players. They pay for food. They pay for staff. They pay for commentators. I'll let you guys know that I got paid very fairly being talent at, I believe, Summit 3. So they actually do pay their talent decently well, and the rates are actually generous. But in the future, we're going to have to figure out a system that, you know, keeps the community interest in line while also making money for the event, because it doesn't make sense to say, well, why can't we make this a free voting process? And really, I mean, that sounds cool and all, but it's not very realistic, because how does Beyond the Summit return money on or get a return on investment, since they're flying all these players in? They have a staff, you know, they house them, they feed them, they pay for commentators and do all this stuff. So, and they also provide the initial 15 grand of the prize pot too. So it's unrealistic to say that it can be totally free. But with that being said, I do think that there needs to be some changes. I think it's getting a little bit ridiculous in terms of how much shilling is going on. I'm a little bit worried for the players, honestly. Like, I do feel for them. I know that they're not obligated to do anything, and I know the fans aren't obligated to donate money or to vote, but it does put a strain, and it's a very real strain, so I don't know what they're going to do, but I hope something creative happens. Now, there is an issue with... So we do have some issues coming up, and this is just the reality of Smash events and future profitability. Sorry, there was just some people on the side. Unfortunately for Smash events, it doesn't have economies of scale. And what I mean by that is normally when you buy something at Costco, it's going to be a lot cheaper per unit than to go buy in smaller quantities. The reason why you save money is because you buy a large amount and over time you spend less money than what you normally would. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of unexpected costs that expand to when you go into a hotel room to a convention center. Labor becomes a lot more expensive. If you guys saw Shinjin's Twitter post, internet's not cheap. It's like anywhere from 20 to 30 grand for hotel internet, for convention center internet. You have to pay for staff, and there's a lot of rules with labor unions that unfortunately you can't really get by. So for some tournaments, for example, you can't even lift the table. It's actually against the contract to lift the table and move it. You have to let the labor union workers take care of that, and there's stuff with food. So it's not just, so when you move up and you go to a larger venue, it doesn't become cheaper per person. In fact, it becomes a lot more expensive. And this is why a lot of people are scratching their heads at Big House and saying, well, last year at the other venue, we got a 24-hour venue with the setups, and we got a bunch of other things, but I'm paying the same amount and getting less. Like, what gives? And the reality is that when you get to a venue that size, you're paying for 24-hour security, and you're paying for electricity bills and all that stuff. And realistically, it probably costs 7 to 8 grand to run a 24/7 venue at the Big House 7, if I were to give an honest estimate, if you pay for security for that long. So for people that were scratching their heads at the $9,000 figure, it's not like Jungle Guy or Robin is, profiting, like taking like 8 grand out of his pocket and saying like, hey, I'm profiting this much and I'm only spending like $1 grand on it. Realistically speaking, he's probably spending the majority of that money to ensure a 24-hour venue if it actually passed. So that's one issue we come into, and because we can only raise venue fees so much, it actually becomes a strain. And this is where we struggle as a community to really figure out how do we generate revenue and remain profitable in the long term. I know this is a little bit of a side tangent between what I talked about initially with the summit, but I want to highlight this because the venue fees are actually subsidizing stuff like the stream. They're paying for Gamer. And the TOs spend a lot of money to prep this. The TOs spend a lot of money to update the stream, and they provide for it. And unfortunately, the stream gets the largest complaints. But from the tournament organizer's perspective, they're not really the most incentivized directly to encourage multiple streams. For Shine, for example, to add an additional stream, it would have costed them probably anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 to get the bandwidth dedicated to putting up another stream. Now, with that being said, they're not going to make a return of investment on that additional stream. How do they make the money? And unfortunately, this is an issue that's fundamental within Smash. Whereas, you look at Street Fighter and other esports, although there's probably some haggling that's done with the producers and the game companies like Capcom, at the very least you see Evo, who runs Street Fighter V, and they're able to produce the content and sell it to ESPN and make a profit off of it. Now, in the interesting case of Smash, I don't really know what the handshake agreement was between Nintendo, Smash 4, and Evo, but I imagine that if the Big House or Genesis were to get access rights to also dual stream on ESPN or something, that they would not see any profits in that because they don't have legal rights to sell a stream featuring Nintendo product. So all in all, it really puts the Smash community in a difficult place because we want to invest in the stream because it's one of our greatest tools to spread Smash. A lot of people watch Smash on stream, but for the TO and the event, the money to support the stream is actually coming from the venue fees, which is coming from the people who actually attend the event. So it's a little bit backwards to have people from the venue pay people who are attending the event to have to subsidize the stream. I'm not saying to get rid of the stream altogether, but I'm telling you this because we have a very flawed business model of how Smash works. And unfortunately, the next thing is, well, if we can't sell the rights to the stream to like an ESPN type of thing, then how does the stream or how does the event make a return on investment that is outside of venue fees? The next logical step is probably to just look at either making better negotiation deals potentially with the hotels and stuff, which is very unlikely, or look for outside sponsors. Now, outside sponsors is a very interesting thing because although for whatever reason, I'm very surprised that we somehow donated $200,000 to the summit, Smashers in general have a low activation rate in terms of, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm postulating. I can't imagine a lot of people who just watched, I don't know, Genesis, for example, and were enticed to buy an HTC phone. The number of tangible metrics that a company can get from sponsoring a Smash event to see like the conversions or the activations that they get is probably not very high. So an event that gets a large sponsorship one day, those companies aren't going to see a return on investment other than getting ad space, which really doesn't mean much if it doesn't turn into sales. So that's kind of the other issue we have. And thanks to companies like HEC and other stuff who want to partner with events, or like companies like Red Bull who want to partner just because they like the game, they want to support the community and keep a good brand image. I don't really know if they're ever going to come close to getting a return on investment. So with that being said, I did lay low for events like GTX and SmashCon, but I really do think down the road that we do have to support events like Beyond the Summit, or companies like Beyond the Summit, the people who run GTX and people who run SmashCon, because we can only really survive and continue to grow outside of Genesis and Big House. These other big events that are existing today are only existing because they're partnering with an outside organization that's funneling money at a loss to run these events. So let me list a couple. Royal Flush is, I think, run by the casino, the Tropicana, and I think the Tropicana takes a loss to run Royal Flush. I am pretty sure that Esports Arena, who partners with 2GG, is probably running at a loss for each of those events. There's no way that the amount of money they make from the stream and from their deals and from venue fees that they're anywhere near profitable for the amount of money they're spending on production and everything to make those events run, and even the prize pot. I'm absolutely sure that GTX did not make money, but they have outside investors. I don't know the status of SmashCon. I don't know their balance sheet. But needless to say, for your event to scale up, to be this big, and for Smash to continue to grow, we really do need to support the outside people that are willing to spend money and lose money on us, because realistically speaking, there are only a few events that can go really big and survive, because you can't just let a random Smasher who was a regional TO grow up into a national and then grow up to a super major. They're not going to be profitable. It's just the reality of the situation. It's incredibly hard to. Unless you have outside business deals or partners. Even Smash and Splash, I imagine that they probably had a partner with the venue and the location they were at. So it's a kind of a rough spot. This was kind of a little bit of a ramble here. I didn't really give any clear thought, but just kind of some of my musings about money in the community. Now, a lot of people wonder, well, why can't we donate the $200,000 to streamers and stuff? Well, the reality is that Beyond the Summit also had like a decent shop and incentives that encourage people that probably would have not spent that money otherwise on any other event or incentive, but they were enticed enough to spend the money on the summit. So I don't think of it as an opportunity cost here, where like just because they spent money on the summit, they're not going to spend money on other events. I feel like the summit found a different audience that was willing to spend a large amount of money on things and donating to their prize pot to get their homies in. But I highly doubt that these people would also donate to another event if summit did not exist. So what does that mean? I am at a loss for ideas on how events can be profitable. I think we really have to be creative and think outside the box to see how can, if we are so capped on the amount of people that will enter a Smash event, how do we entice the Twitch viewer, the Redditor, the person on social media that never attends an event to really go like, hey, like, $30, $50, I'm willing to give it to this event. They have cool merchandise, or they have a cool incentive for me to donate. And we really have to figure out, like, as a community, how do we get people to want to donate and be a part of growing the community? And I don't have answers to it. I don't know what a shop would look like. I don't know what the incentives look like, but I think it's going to be important in the long term. So overall, those are just my general thoughts on money in the summit, and I hope you guys learned a thing or two in this ramble.